Wake up, check. Shower, check. Iced Ladybird, Orange Blossom, and Lavender Latte. That's a check. Time for a little bit of editing of yesterday's vlog, of everything we shot yesterday, and then Lodge live stream. Pokerface Ash, Caitlin Komeski, Cairo Loves You, host of characters. But first we edit. A very fun lineup here under the lights, as Slick Rick would say, here at the Lodge. We're locked into the live stream today with some very fun faces that you will recognize. We're playing 5-10 with a 10 big blind ante with a $5,000 cap on the buy-ins. A lot of times we'll play match the stack. This time we're playing cap 5K. Everything always plays bigger in Texas, no matter what you set the blinds at. 5-10, 10 big blind ante. Expect this to play at least like a 10-20. The straddles will be on. The $40 straddle will get on. Yours truly will put the straddle on up to $320. So yeah, things as always get out of control in Texas. So anyway, get locked in here. Things are gonna happen. Let's get into the action. All right, hand number 5 off of the deck here. We see Cairo limping into the pot for $10 in the under the gun spot. We see Goob getting after that limp. He goes ahead and puts in a raise up to $75. So as you can see right away, sizes in Texas, bigger than usual in a 5-10 game. Not going to play like a typical 5-10 game. Action over to us on the dealer button. We've got 8-6 offsuit. What a beauty. What a powerhouse of a hand. I'm in there. I make the call. In reality, I'm just trying to splash around here. Obviously, this is typically a very poor call, but I'm looking to play lots of hands today, especially in position. I got myself the dealer button. Let's call. Let's get in the mix. Shy makes the call as well out of the big blind and back over to Cairo, who, what do you know, wants to limp 3-bet. He's going to go ahead, put in the raise, squeeze all these guys who have terrible hands like 8-6 offsuit, puts in the raise up to $230, which is actually not that big of a raise considering he's out of position versus multiple players. So when Goob makes the call, I didn't come all the way to Round Rock, Texas from Las Vegas to throw away the 8-6 offsuit. No, sir, not on the button. I'm in there for that price. Shy in as well. So heading 4 ways to a flop, and there's a reason why you play the 8-6 offsuit. It's because you're going to flop top 2 pair almost always. Right on cue, 8-6-3 with 3 hearts, monotone board. Don't love that aspect. Don't have any of those hearts. But when action checks over to me, no free cards, not with top 2 pair. Don't need to bet too big in a multi-way pot on a monotone board. I bet $250. Shy is in for that price. Cairo is in for that price. Goob, he has nothing. He actually had ace-king offsuit here. Does not connect and lets it go. Not as good of a hand as the 8-6. Turn is a jack of spades. That's essentially a brick unless someone somehow either has pocket jacks or a jack 8. Seems unlikely. If we're good on the flop, we're still good most often. So when these guys check it over to me, time to wager some more money. Gonna grab additional black chips this time. Ramp it up to $800. That is about a half pot size wager. Shy decides to let it go. He flopped top pair, queen kicker. Gets out of the way wisely this time. Cairo in the tank. I guess he's going to do some randomization, spin his little globe here, and decides to throw away the pocket 10s, which is a good fold. We got the best hand. 2 pair, very strong. 8-6 offsuit, very strong. Off to a good start here. T1000, very strong. Poker player. He also does stand-up comedy. He does yoga. He does meditation. He's got it all going on, this guy. He's going to come in for the raise out of the hijack spot up to $35. No tilt on my right in the cutoff. He makes the call. Once again, we're on the dealer button here. We've got the King 9 offsuit. Not a great hand, but like I said, trying to play some poker. I make the call on the button, and Shy is in there in the big blind. Another 4-way affair, heading to 10-9-6. All hearts. Gives us middle pair. Not that strong. Action checks over to me, just going to check it back this time. Turn is another 10, and after these guys check it over to me once again, feels like we're going to have the best hand here a lot of the time. Second pair, second best kicker. Time to put in a bet, I think. Why not? I bet $50. T1000 thinks about it for a little bit. He likes to pounce on weakness, and after I check back on this flop, I'm definitely capped. He understands that, but he doesn't have much to work with. He's got ace-7 of diamonds, no removal to anything, and no equity, so he lets it go. On tilt, though, got himself a little something he wants to continue with at least. He goes ahead and makes the call. River is a total brick on the 3 of diamonds. On tilt, checks it over to me once again. Pretty sure we've got the best hands here. I'm going to go for a little bit of thin value, targeting worse pairs, targeting an ace high with ace of hearts, maybe. Think we want to size down when we're targeting a worse pair than the nines here. $75, looking for some thin value here. On tilt, thinks it over, laughs at my small sizing, decides to let it go. Makes a good fold with a 6-5. I show it, friendly game. Show that 9. Drag it in. See, guys? 8-6 offsuit, king 9 offsuit. Keep your pocket aces and your pocket kings. I'm here to play. T1000, raising it up in this hand on the +1 spots. We've got the 9-8 offsuit in the cutoff. We are sticking to the theme. Gonna make the call here, play in position. Cairo makes the call out of the big blinds, and we go 3 ways to a flop. Jack 5-3, 2 diamonds. That helps us none whatsoever. Action checks over to me. We don't have hardly much of anything. Really not that much to be proud of. Just gonna check it back. 10 of hearts gives us an open ender. 2 checks over to me again. Seen a lot of weakness on a wet board. Let's go ahead and fire out here. Bet $45. Cairo. Queen 7 offsuit. That's even uglier than mine. He lets it go. T1000, ace 8 offsuit. Nothing to speak of. 3 for 3 with absolute trash hands. But who needs good hands when you got trash hands and you're in the zone, people? We're in the zone, sort of. All right, next hand. All right, jumping ahead to hand number 33 of the stream now. We got a blind versus straddle battle about to ensue. I got the $20 straddle on, and action folds over to on tilt. Comes in for the raise to $75. We got queen 3 of diamonds. We're in position. Let's defend the straddle. I go ahead and make the call. Heads up to a flop that comes down 6-4-4, 2 spades. That is crappy. But my opponent, Mr. On Tilt, he bets very small, $35. We're in position here. Let's take a little float. Got nothing here. This could be a little bit adventurous to say the least, but when you can always turn a queen, I'd say it's a fantastic call. On Tilt checks it over to me now. Let's go for some value. We've got ourselves top pair. Some draws out there available. Turns out On Tilt has absolutely nothing that connects with this board. Reasonable raise pre-flop with a Jack 10, but doesn't find any help post-flop. We're good. Let's drag in another one, playing some beautiful poker here with some beautiful hands. All right, very next hand here, $20 straddle is on in front of Caitlin Komeski, putting on the 20, action over to T1000 in the dealer spot, coming in for the raise up to $125. And what do you know, we actually have a good hand this time. We've got the real deal, we've got the ladies, we've got the pocket queens. Let's go ahead and 3-bet this out of position, out of the big blind up to $475. Turns out T1000 is just screwing around. He's got the king 4 offsuit. Not too much he can do here in this spot. No action to be found for the ladies. $20 straddle is on once again in this spot. T1000 coming in for a raise again. This time out of the cutoff spot, makes it $60 to go. Mr. On Tilt on the dealer button, he makes the call, and we've got another premium hand and another real hand back to back. Now we've got the ace king offsuit. You know what I like to do when I have ace king offsuit? I like to 3-bet people. Let's go ahead and make this 300 smackers to go. 300 lodge bucks. Go ahead and raise it out of the small blind. Back over to T1000. He likes to get into pots. He likes to splash around. Doesn't like to fold. He likes to battle, but he's got the 7 deuce here in this spot. 7 deuce of clubs. It's painful for him to let it go. I say he's, he's folding to my 3-bets. I think he wants to fold to my 3-bets today, but he's got the 7 deuce, and there's not too much he can do. However, On Tilt goes ahead and makes the call here in position, and we go heads up to a flop. We're out of position here, but no problem. Flopping top pair. As I'm thinking about how much to bet, On Tilt says, that's not me. Goes ahead, chucks the 3s into the muck. Fair enough, sir. I had the ace king. Good fold. $400 profit. Quick look at the winnings so far. We've got ourselves a $1,145 profit. Running's pretty smooth here. Smooth sailing in the early going. All right, moving right along here, people, up to hand number 43 of the stream. We see On Tilt coming in for a limp on the dealer button. We look down at the king, queen offsuit in the small blind. That's 2 paint cards, and there's no raises yet. So let's put in a raise. I make it $100 to go here out of the small blind. Caitlin on my direct left, she makes the call. And over to Shy now in the straddle spot, who goes ahead and 3-bets up to $450. On Tilt gets out of the way, and we've got ourselves 2 paint cards. As mentioned, would be better if they were matching, but they're not. But nobody likes a knit, so I make the call. Caitlin decides to step out of the way here. She goes ahead and folds, and we are now heads up to a flop that comes down king high. Top pair, good kicker. Of course, that's going to be good enough to continue with all the time. So when I check it and Shy puts out a bet of 300 bucks, we've got ourselves the easiest call in the world. Turns to 5 of diamonds, which adds a second flush draw on board. Shouldn't change things too often here. Check it over to Shy once again here, and he's thinking things over. for quite some time before deciding to fire a second barrel here. That barrel has a yellow chip involved this time. That's a $1,300 bet. Do we love this? It's definitely getting a little bit uncomfortable now. With 2 flush draws out there, I guess it makes sense to face a big bet. He could easily have one of these 2 flush draws. We're losing to a hand like pocket aces and ace king. I don't think he's going to have ace 3 all that often, but it is possible. Don't think he would 3-bet pre-flop with any of the other possible sets out there. And like I said, there are a bunch of draws available here on this board now. There's also one other factor to note. We are playing the Octo Crab game. This is a game that Cairo came up with. Instead of the 7 deuce, we're using 8-3 as a bounty hand. If anyone wins a hand with 8-3, suited or unsuited, they win a bounty from every other player at the table. So that's always in our mind as well, and adds some additional bluff combos to different spots. And this one seems like it would be a good spot to put that one into use, which would turn an open-ended straight draw. And when the river comes to 6, that's not a great card because now we also lose to that hand along with pocket aces, ace king, pocket kings. Gonna check it over to Shy once more here. Obviously, we're just hoping to get to showdown now with our top pair. Reasonably good kicker. Shy goes into the tank here for a little bit, thinking things over before eventually deciding to fire out for another bet, which is bad news. And as I say in the moment, I can't even beat the crab now. The Octo Crab has come home, and it makes us straight. So we're beating busted flush draws, but those additional combos of bluffs that include the Octo Crab, we can't beat those now. So it doesn't feel good. And when he bets $2,000, I don't think that there is too much profitability in a call here. It's not a gigantic bet here on the river, considering it's about half pot size wager. I don't know. Nobody likes to fold top pair here, especially when none of those flush draws come home on the river. But I decide to chuck it into the muck. And as we can see, Shy had the goods. He's got the value hand. He's got the ace king suited. Story makes sense from pre-flop to river. Anytime 2 players flop top pair in a 3-bet pot, that is a little bit of a cooler, but happy we're able to find the fold here on the river for the $2,000. All right, shaking it off, trying to get back on the horse here in hand number 44. JC comes in for the raise out of the hijack spot, and on tilt puts in the 3-bet out of the cutoff spot. We've got ace 4 suited in hearts. That's the birthday hand. What a pretty hand it is. Putting in the 4-bet here I think would make a lot of sense. Suited wheel aces seems like a pretty good candidate to put in as a 4-bet bluff. Folding seems absolutely out of the question. I go with the middling route. I go ahead and put in the cold call. I'm on the button. We're in position. We get to see what happens on each street. Toss in the $100, and the 3 of us go to a flop after JC makes the call as well. 5 deuce deuce rainbow. Not too bad, all things considered. Gives us a gut shot and a backdoor flush draw and the overcard. JC checks it on tilt, continues for a wager of $120. That is a very reasonable price, my friend. I make the call. The T1000 folds. Heads up to the turn, which brings in another 5. Board is double paired now. We're chopping with all better aces at this point, losing to overpairs, beating a hand like king, queen, queen, jack, stuff like that. On tilt finds a second barrel here. He goes ahead and bets $305. We're beating some hands. We're losing to some hands, such as poker. I go ahead and make the call, and we see not a great card here on the river. Now we're losing to those king X hands as well. Until thinks about it for a little bit, checks it back, which is a good sign because we're just trying to get to showdown here as mentioned. And it's very good news because Until has 6-3 offsuit. We can beat the 6 high, people. He's actually playing the board. We can beat the board. We got ace high. That's a $650 profit with ace high. Shout out to On Tilt though. His name is Nick. Shout out to him for getting in there, getting in the mix, splashing around with these kinds of hands. He's a super fun guy, great to chat with, and I will put a link to his channel up above. Check it out. All right, hand number 48 of the stream. Yours truly has the $40 double straddle on, and we see Shy pouncing on it. Coming in for the raise out of the hijack up to $150. We've got a suited Broadway hand here. We've got the king jack of spades. Looks super pretty, looks super strong. Could definitely consider a 3-bet here. Calling's perfectly reasonable as well. I decide on that route, and we go heads up to a flop. 7, 8, 9, 2 diamonds. Interesting flop here, considering we have a jack. Could definitely consider a lead on this board, blocking the nuts and just having king high. We're going to have a lot of hands that'll interact with this board, but so will my opponent as well, and I decide to check it. Shy checks it back. Turn pairs the board now. After he checks back on this board, seems highly unlikely that he's going to be too strong here. We've got ourselves king high. Do we want to check this and check call with it? Not really. I think I'd like a bet here, and if the river doesn't change too much, I think following through with another bet makes a lot of sense. So I fire out for $180, and Shy makes a pretty quick call here. River double pairs the board again here with the 8 of spades hitting the river. As mentioned, I don't think Shy's going to connect with this board too hard too often. Granted, he could check back flop with a second pair or a bottom pair, trying to get to showdown with those types of hands, and either of those would have made a full house now on this river. But we're sitting here with king high, people. King high and a dream. What choice do we have? Just check and give up? That doesn't seem very fruitful to me. I think we want to assemble a wager. I think we want to make a bet. As mentioned, we can run into a full house here sometimes, so do we want to just like bomb it for infinite money? Maybe not. Do we want to bet a lot? I think at least a reasonable amount, and that amount that I come up with is $900. Slight overbet of the pot, actually. That sends Shy into the tank here. Obviously, we're hoping for a fold. Obviously, we're hoping he doesn't come up with some sort of a hero call with ace high. Lots of draws available on this flop and turn, and all of those brick out, but I'm basically representing a full house here. I think I would still make this wager even with the bottom full house, going for maximum value with a 7. Could maybe size down a little bit, but not out of the realm of possibilities here, going for a big bet. That's the story I'm trying to tell anyway, and we send Shy into the tank. Good news is that Shy does not make the hero call. It wouldn't have been too painful considering he actually folded king high here and was thinking of making an insane hero call with the king high. Turns out it would have been a fantastic call because we would have ended up chopping here. At least we would not have lost the pot if he does find that call. But this is the much preferred course of actions. Lets it go. We get to drag the whole pot instead of half of it. But props to him for thinking about making that call with king high. It's a limp fest here in hand number 50 as we got the $20 straddle on and we got 3 players limping into the pot before action over me in the big blind. Limping is going to be unacceptable, gentlemen, in this hand as we've got, once again, the ladies. Let's go ahead and raise here. Let's make it a chunky amount. We're out of position and there's a bunch of limpers. I make it $175 to go. Over to Shy, who has not limped into the pot yet, but he's got himself a hand worth calling. He goes ahead and tosses it in. Cairo. Out of there with the pocket threes, makes the fold. Goob has himself the ace-8 offsuit. That's not a very good hand. Chucks it in, but JC, as mentioned, he likes to battle. He goes ahead and makes the call on the dealer button. 3 ways to a flop, us with the pocket queens, and we find a pretty favorable one here. Queen 10-10. That's the top full house, my friends. Board is wet enough where some hands can continue. Flush draws, maybe straight draws. Maybe some smaller pairs, and maybe even a 10. I go ahead and c-bet here for $150. I would take a stab with a hand like ace-king for an amount somewhere around this number. 150 it is, and Shy makes the call before action over to JC, who pounces on it. He goes ahead and puts in a raise. Obviously, we love to see it. He raises up to $450. I think putting in a 3-bet here would be a little bit too strong. JC's a very tough player. He's going to be able to find some bluffs in this spot for sure. We want to keep all those in there. So I go ahead and make the call. Shy is out of the way, tosses his 4s into the muck, and we go heads up to a turn. The turn is the 8 of diamonds, which looks like a great card to me. Adds even more flush draws. Jack 9 gets there. A 10 is going to want to bet again, usually. And JC is rarely one to give up. After we check it over to him, he thinks about it for a little while and drops some more money over the line. This time you bet $700. Obviously, we are loving this. As mentioned, I think JC is going to find tons of bluffs, appropriately at least. A lot of times when we come in for the raise here out of the big blind, pre-flop, we're going to have a hand like aces, kings. Would I check raise on the turn with any of those hands? No, I would just check call. Would I check raise a hand like ace-king of diamonds or hearts as a bluff here? I don't think so. I think we'd want to have some sort of board interaction blocking some of the strongest hands if we decide to do that. I think we would just check call with those hands. Struggling to find too many check raises here on this turn, so I don't think I want to over-announce my hands. Just go ahead and check call the $700 here. Laying the rope for JC. Keeping all those bluffs in, and we go to a river card, which comes the 5 of hearts, which completes the front door flush draw. Check it over to JC one more time here, hoping that he's made a flush, hoping that he's got himself a strong 10, maybe even a worse full house somehow with the 10-8, hoping he empties the clip on the times that he has the bluffs in this spot. After JC thinks about it for quite some time, JC says this is probably a terrible check back and decides to check it back with the 10-7 of clubs. I let him know that in fact is not a terrible check back because we have the virtual nuts here. What a guy. What a poker player this T1000 is. The Terminator does not get terminated in this spot. Checks it back with trips. These Texas poker players, they're good, you know, especially when they do yoga and they meditate and they do stand-up comedy. Boy, are they good. What could have been a full double up there? All right, on to hand number 52, which we see on tilt coming in for the limp out of the cutoff. We've got the Doyle. We're on the button here. Let's go ahead. Get after it here with the 10 deuce and make it $80 to go. On tilt makes the call. So heads up to a flop that comes down about as wet and dynamic as it could be. Jack 9-5 with 2 diamonds. On tilt checks it. Are we going to check back here with 10 high? No, that's a no. That's a negative. We go ahead and bet for $80, and On Tilt quickly makes the call. Turn is at 3, offsuit 3, and that is as big of a brick as you could ask for. On Tilt checks it over to me again. Are you thinking what I'm thinking, people? I'm thinking reasonable bet size. Go ahead and pot it here on the turn, and hey, what do you know? That's good enough. On Tilt decides to let it go with a 5-4 offsuit. Can't really blame him too much, just bottom pair on this kind of a board. Tough to hang on with bottom pair. And the Doyle gets the job done here. Not a huge pot, but, you know, always fun. Always a nice little moral victory with the 10 deuce. All right, next hand here. On Tilt, coming in for the raise out of the hijack spot, up to $30 with no straddle on. We got the 6-4 diamonds. Let's chuck it in there. Why not? Happy to splash around, make the call out of the cutoff spot. Over to Cairo now in the big blind, who puts in the 3-bet. Makes it $120 to go. Not a very big 3-bet size here. On Tilt makes the call. We're in position versus these two guys, and we'll go ahead and make the call as well. 8-7-4 with 2 clubs. Pretty interesting. Gives us bottom pair here, plus a gut shot / blocker. Cairo checks it. On Tilt decides to fire away here at this board. Bets $115. We've got some connectivity here. Cairo maybe doesn't have too much here after he checks it. I make the call, and sure enough, Cairo gets out of the way. Turn is a king of clubs, 3rd club, not a great card. We're drawing dead versus possible flushes that might exist, and On Tilt fires out for more money. He fires out for $320 here. Didn't hate the flop so much, but really not enjoying my bottom pair. Worthless kicker. Does block the straights, but now flushes exist. I think we're out of there. All right, a couple of limps in this pot. Hijack and dealer limp it in. We've got ourselves ace-jack offsuit in the small blind. I'm not sensing a lot of strength out of these limps, so let's go ahead and raise it up here. I make it $130 to go before apparently running square into it. Caitlin goes ahead, puts in the 3-bet up to $360. Back around to the limpers. Pretty tough to make the cold call after limping in. These guys get out of the way. Back over to us now. It's not a gigantic 3-bet. Caitlin not super deep though. Happy to give Caitlin some action. Easily one of my favorite creators in all of poker, as she is to many people who have seen her stuff. Action has been given. I go ahead and make the call. Heads up to a flop that gives us top pair. Ace 5-4 with 2 clubs. Obviously still losing to ace king and ace queen. And pocket aces, moving ahead of a hand like kings or queens or jacks or 10s. Check it over to Caitlin, who relatively quickly checks it back. 6 of clubs on the turn doesn't really help us, but I don't expect Caitlin to have a flush here, hardly ever. Don't know if I just want to start bombing away here though, so I decided to check it over to Caitlin again. Maybe she's laying the trap sometimes, see what happens here. And what happens is Caitlin checks it back. So now I'm feeling very confident. Don't see how she would check back with ace king or ace queen twice. Pretty sure we got the best hands here, and even still, when the river comes the 3 of hearts, putting 4 to a straight on the board. Pair of aces, that's the best pair you can possibly make in a game like this. Think we're going to target those premium holdings that do not like this flop. So I don't think we want to bet big if we want to try and find some value versus those kinds of hands. Let's bet something. Let's bet not too big. 375, that's somewhere around half pot, maybe just under it. Caitlin says she has to call, and indeed, I think she does with the pocket kings. We outflop her in the 3-bet pots. I know the feeling, Caitlin. You finally get a good hand, and these dummies crack it with the ace-jack offsuit from out of position in a 3-bet pot. But, yeah, I guess we'll take it. All right, guys, as if there's not enough action in this game, we decide to play the nit game. We've played it before. If you don't know what that is, leave the question in the comments. I'll fill you in. But in this hand, we see Goob getting after it out of the dealer spot, comes in for the raise. We got the 10-6 offsuit. What a beauty. What a powerhouse. I'm in the straddle spot. We're playing the nit game. Got to win a hand. I go ahead and make the call. Heads up to queen 7-4. Not exactly too much to speak of with our hand yet. I go ahead and check it, and Goob decides to check it back. Turn's kind of interesting. It's an offsuit 8. That gives us a double gutter. A 5 or a 9 gives us 5 cards in a row, and that's a straight, which would be very cool. We got some removal to the strongest hands here, and as mentioned, we're playing the nit game. I think this is an open invite to fire. After my opponent checks back on the flop, let's do that. Grab some black chips, chuck them out there. 300 bucks, very slight over bet, and that gets the job done. Turns out we actually had the best hand here. We had 10-6 versus 10-5. We had him dominated. I had more gut shots than him. I had 2. He only had 1. We get to release our nit button, and we are safe. Currently chilling with an $1,850 profit, somewhere around halfway through the stream at this point. Winning some, losing some, splashing around lots. Enjoyable time. All right, hand number 69. Nice. We see On Tilt coming in for the limp, and we got the king-jack offsuit in the cutoff. Let's go ahead, raise it up 2 pink cards and make it $50 to go. Over to Shy in the small blinds. He's a tough player. He doesn't make it easy. He goes ahead and puts in the 3-bet here up to 250 bucks. We're in position, 2 paint cards. Yes, there's some reverse implied odds to be had. Do we worry about those things in Texas? No, we do not. Not on a live stream. I go ahead, make the call, and we go heads up to a flop. Flop comes down 6-4 deuce, 2 diamonds. Shy decides to check it over to me in this spot, and I'm definitely thinking about it here, thinking about firing out for a bet. We've only got ourselves king high, and I don't know how much this board is going to interact with Shy's 3-bet range. So I think I like a stab here. I'm going to have deuces, 4s, 6s, maybe even 3-5 suited the way I'm playing today. I think a stab makes a lot of sense, but for whatever reason, I just decide to check it back here on this flop. Probably not my strongest play. Turn pairs the board, and after he checks it over to me, I think we're kind of in no man's land now. We're never going to have that strong of a hand after we check back on this flop. So now there's not really any good options on the table for me. I don't think a bet makes a lot of sense. We would bet with all of our overpairs, all of our strongest hands. I don't think we would give a free card to. Maybe pocket 6s occasionally, but there's less sets available now once the board pairs. So as mentioned, stuck in no man's land here. I just decided to check it back once again. River's an ace, not a good card. Shy grabs some money, he wagers. We out of there. Turns out he had himself the ace-queen of clubs. Think a barrel or two might have got the job done here. Checking it back with king high after making this call pre-flop. Not my finest work, not going to lie. All right, hand number 72. That's 3 hands later for those of you who are exceptional at math. And we got some action in this one. Poker Face Ash coming in for the raise. We are still playing the knit game. And I'm pretty sure Poker Face Ash still has her knit button. She comes in for the raise with the $40 straddle on. It makes it $120 to go. JC, he will get after it when he sees opportunities such as the knit game, people trying to lose their knit button. He's going to go ahead and put in the 3-bet up to $500 now out of the big blind spot. And action over to us in the $40 straddle, looking down at ace-5 of hearts. This is an interesting spot because, as mentioned, JC/T1000, he can get after it. If he sees an opportunity to go ahead and put in a 3-bet bluff, he is definitely one to do so. And we've got ourselves the premium pre-flop bluffing hand, the ace-5 suited. Bunch of factors in combination working together that makes me want to go after it here. Put in the 4-bet. And after thinking about it for a bit, it's not all that easy because JC put in $500 already. I say let's do it. Let's get after it here. As we can see, Poker Face Ash does in fact still have her knit button, so JC could be going after that fact. But let's see what happens here because we just put $1,125 into the pot pre-flop, and we got a 5 in our hand. Not all that comfortable versus JC, who is, as mentioned, a very tough player. That's when he's not, having too many drinks and splashing around too hard, which he can definitely do sometimes. He's a fun guy. He's a fun dude. But you know what would be really fun here is if he folds. That would be the most fun. And after thinking about it for some time, he does decide to let it go, thankfully. He's got himself the ace-jack offsuit, so can't really blame him. Kind of doubt he'd want to take that one to war post-flop. Does decide to get out of the way, and that is a lovely little victory for us with the ace-5 suited. Moving along here, people. Knit game still in effect here. Poker Face Ash still with her knit button, and she is getting after it here out of the cutoff spot, raising it up to $75. I've got the $20 straddle on in this hand. On my right is Mr. No Tilt coming in for the call. And we've got the Queen 9 offsuit. Let's defend. 3 ways to a little flop here that comes down nice. Queen 9-7. That is top 2 pair for yours truly. God, I am a genius playing the Queen 9 offsuit. This is why you do it, people. No Tilt gets out of the way after Poker Face Ash c-bets for $155. I do a double check to make sure I do in fact have top 2 pair, which Poker Face Ash took that to mean I was folding. No, ma'am, I am not folding. I am check raising with this beauty of a hand. Check raise it up, but that is just going to get the job done because Poker Face Ash has 5-4 offsuit. That's not exactly a whole lot of connection on this board. Can't blame her though, coming in for the raise. Trying to get rid of the knit button doesn't work when you run into a monster like the Queen 9 offsuit. Hand number 78. There's a raise from JC out of the +1 spot, and what do you know? Queen 9 offsuit, what a beautiful hand. I go ahead, make the call out of the hijack spot. Action around to Goob, who goes ahead and makes the call, trying to get rid of his knit button as well. Ace-9-8, 2 diamonds. Gives us middle pair. And interesting that Goob decides to lead right out on this flop on an ace-high board into the pre-flop raiser. That's JC. In this instance, JC has nothing. He's got the 6 high. He's out of the way. We've got ourselves a pair. We're going nowhere. We go ahead and make the call for $150. Turn is the ultimate brick. This time Goob checks it. Pretty interesting. That's another piece of the puzzle here. Don't think Goob would have too much here too often. Once again, leading out into the pre-flop raiser on an ace-high board, and now checking on this brick card on a very wet board. think we're going to have the best hand here a lot of the time here with a pair of nines, but also just happy to take this one to showdown. I go ahead and check it back. River's not a great card. It's the Jack of Hearts. Maybe it's not the most obvious, but some draws do get there, or they at least make a pair. So we're downgraded from second pair to third pair on this board. And now Goob leads out on this river card. Even though the graphics say check here, he did in fact fire out a bet. I believe he bet out for about $250 or $275, something around that number. Do we want to just call here? Maybe that's reasonable since the flush draws do miss. We've got ourselves third pair here, so calling down with third pair doesn't feel all that great. I think he will have an ace here sometimes, betting on the flop to see where he's at, maybe a hand like ace 5. Think he could be taking a stab with some draws. Definitely does not feel all that nutted though when he stabs and then checks on the turn. We've got a pretty interesting hand that we can do some things with. We do have the 9, which blocks some 2 pairs, and we've got a queen, which blocks some straights. We've got removal to queen 10, which would be the nuts here. So I don't know if you guys are thinking what I'm thinking, but I'm thinking that a raise feels much better than a call here with all those factors in play. Let's do that. Let's get after it. Let's turn this pair of 9s into a bluff, looking to fold out a weak ace or worse. I'm going to assemble some chips, and I'm going to drop them over the betting line. 4 figures worth of money, $1,120. That is going to send Goob into the tank here, and we can go ahead and reveal the cards here. He's got himself the Jack 6 of diamonds, and turns out he did stab with that flush draw, and now he's rivered a pair. Seems like a pretty tough spot to me with a pair of jacks, but let's see what he decides to do.
Andrew's thinking about doing something here.
Oh my God, he's raising.
He's going to raise.
A 9 into a bluff here.
Did Goop bet something, didn't he?
Yeah, this is a sick bluff here, blocking the nut, queen 10 straight. Really sick bluff here from Andrew.
But for you, I would.
Goob just with a weak jack.
Not while I play though.
Beat for about half of his chips.
Losing to a lot. It's very unlikely that Andrew's doing this with diamonds when you have diamonds of your own. Thinks it's probably unlikely that Goob has an ace after the turn goes check, check as well. And Goob looks to be leaning towards laying it down, but he makes the call.
Oh!
That a boy, Goob.
Oh!
Shit.
Goob is somehow able to make an unbelievable call here with the rivered pair of jacks. Even though he's got removal to flush draws, he finds the call here for $1,120, the pair of jacks on an ace-high board. Better pairs available, straights available, 2 pairs available, all sorts of things, and he somehow finds the call. This is a pretty sick call, but it is a damn good one because he can beat the pair of 9s that I was turning into a bluff. So, kudos to this guy. Kudos to Goob. Makes the call here. Unbelievable call. That's going to eat into our winnings. We're still in the green, $1,120, but yeah, it would have been nice to win that pot, not going to lie. All right, hand number 82 here. Straddles galore are on at this point because we see JC coming in for a raise up to $200 on the dealer button. We got the king 9 of spades. I think that's a reasonable 3-bet candidate. As we know by now, JC on the dealer button, he likes to get after it, of course. Let's go ahead and find a 3-bet here. Out of position. It's going to be a little bit on the pricey side here, coming in for the 3-bet over the $200 open, but we make it the 4x amount, $800. Go ahead, chuck that in there. Action folds around back over to the T1000 in the dealer spot. Not want to give up easily. He goes ahead and makes the call. So the two of us going heads up to a flop that looks pretty nice to me with the king 9 of spades. Queen 9-3 with 2 spades. Pair plus a king high flush draw. Easy to find a C-bet here. I do so for $600 with my pair plus flush draw. Back over to JC now, who thinks things over, takes another look at his cards here. Once he puts the chips back on top of these cards, it looks like he's not going to be throwing these cards into the muck. And in fact, he decides to do quite the opposite, grabbing all of his yellow chips, chucking them out into the middle. That's $4,000, and we've got ourselves a hand that we are definitely not going to be mucking ourselves as well. We go ahead and stick the rest of the money in there. Let's see what we are up against here, and what we are up against is the best possible scenario that we could have asked for, because JC flops himself a worse flush draw that he decides to put the pressure on with, which I could definitely not blame him for. He's got himself 5 high, which has obviously no showdown value. Usually he's not going to be in anywhere near bad as a situation as this one, because if I'm going to have aces or kings or ace queen or something of that nature, he's going to have a very reasonable amount of equity if I do decide to continue. Unfortunately for him, he is obliterated 95% to 5%. He's going to need to make a straight here or running 2-pair, running trips. And on the turn, the 7 of diamonds opens up a possibility. But unfortunately for him, Jack of hearts, that's a brick for him. We win a giant one here, $11,735 according to the graphics. 5-figure pots, the biggest pot of the show so far. That's going to put us firmly into Profitville after this hand. That's a favorable scenario for sure. And as we can see, taking a look at the V-pips here, as you've seen thus far, yours truly having himself a fun time splashing around playing 48% of the hands. But yeah, taking a look at the cumulative winnings here thus far, that puts us on top of the leaderboard, my friends. $5,895. A lovely little afternoon at the lodge so far. More poker to come, though. These games are always volatile. Anything can happen as long as the cards are in the air. All right, hand number 93 on tilt coming in for the raise up to $40. No straddle line in this hand. We got the Queen 10 in position in the cutoff. Chuck in the call. Just the two of us. Got myself a White Claw, lime flavored, delicious. Let's see a flop. Ace 10-5, rainbow. That's a pair. On tilt bets. I call. Turns a king, gives us a gut shot. On tilt checks it over to us. Happy to get the showdown here and take a free card. I check it back. River's a 7 of spades. Backdoor flush comes in, but no betting on the turn. Shouldn't really influence things too much. On tilt puts out a small blocker bet, $25. You know what? You got a customer, my friend, because I got a pair. Toss out the call. Turns out it's a battle of the 10s. We've got the best 10. We've got a queen kicker. White Claw energy. Drink it up. Get good cards like third pair. Make the call. Drag it in. Lime. Good flavor. Lime. All right, next hand. Next hand is 9s. We got 9s. That's a pair. Raise. $75. Who wants some of this heat? Who wants some of this White Claw action? Anybody? On tilt does. He goes ahead. He makes the call. Queen 10-5. 2 overcards. After on tilt checks it over to me, check it back. Turn deuce of diamonds. Second diamond. He checks it again. Don't think there's too much reason to bet here. Go ahead and check it back once again on the turn. River's interesting. It's a Jack of hearts, which puts the possibilities of ace-king being the nuts now on the board. On tilt laughs and sort of immediately gives me credit for that type of hand. Would make a lot of sense. I would probably take this line with ace-king a lot of the time. Could check it back here with our pocket 9s, just take it to showdown. Or we could put out a big bet here just in case my opponent happens to have a 10 or a jack. We lose to those hands, but maybe we can fold them out with a large wager. We're going to be the only ones who can really have ace-king here. Maybe we can do that just in case. I'm going to go ahead, grab a bunch of chips, several black chips, make an overbet here on the river. $300, and that immediately folds out on tilt, but turns out we had the best hand anyway. He had himself a pair of 5s. 9s were actually good. You know, just in case, just in case. All right, throwback to the very first hand that I played on this stream. Now it is hand number 101, and we've got the 8-6 offsuit once again. Coming for the raise out of the cutoff. Caitlin's in on the dealer button. Cairo is in the big blind. We're in the middle here. We're in between Cairo and Caitlin, who has position in the dealer button. So when it comes down Jack 9-6 with 2 spades, I'm going to do a lot of checking on this type of board. I think with bottom pair here, that makes plenty of sense as well. Caitlin fires out for $50. Cairo out of the way. Got ourselves a pair. I call. King of spades. That's the 3rd spade on board. We do happen to have a spade. Going to check it over to Caitlin, though. And this time, Caitlin checks it back. River is an offsuit ace now. We've got ourselves 4th pair on the board. Are we super proud of this bottom pair on this kind of a board? That is going to be a no. What do we want to do? Do we want to check it over here to Caitlin? Or do we want to get after it here a little bit? I don't think she's going to have a flush all that often after she checks back on the turn. Probably not going to have any sets here. Unless it is a very cautiously played pocket 9s. Would she check back with a straight here on the turn? Maybe, maybe not. I think a lot of 2-pair holdings are probably going to find a 3-bet pre-flop in this spot as well. So let's go ahead and bet some money. Turning this 6 into a bluff once again. Obviously not doing this for value. Don't really want to get called. Trying to fold out a pair of jacks or a pair of 9s maybe. Whatever it is, we don't really want to get called here with our pair of 6s. Once again, putting out a small overbet here on the river. Fire out for $275. Turns out we actually have the best hand here. Caitlin has the 8-7 of clubs. Flops the open-ender with a backdoor flush draw. None of that materializes and is left with 8 high here. So it's not exactly a superhero play. We run into the bottom of her range. Drag it in here with the pair of 6s. All right, hand number 102. You guys have seen me splash around with some really dumb hands in this vlog. This is no dumb hand. This is the aces. The double A's. We're coming in for the raise. That's $30, my friends. No straddle line in this hand. $30 it is. And right away, some interesting news from Caitlin on my direct left, who puts in the 3-bet. Love to see it, of course. When you got the aces, she 3-bets it up to $105 before action folds back around to me. Do we want a flat call here? Set the trap? Not really. Maybe if we were in position, maybe we could consider that option a little bit more strongly. I think we want to put in the 4-bet here. I don't think Caitlin's messing about too often. I think she's going to have something that she'll want to continue with a fair amount of the time. Let's find a 4-bet with the nuts here. Put in a 4-bet up to $275. Back over to Caitlin now. Weighs her decisions. Seems like she's been pretty card dead throughout this session. Looks like she's got something that she does in fact want to continue with, and she decides to continue for the maximum, ripping it all in for her $2,700 or $2,800 stack. And unfortunately, she has run square into it, finding the pocket queens versus the pocket aces. Definitely a bit of a cooler for her, and as mentioned, I think she's been pretty card dead in this session. So to finally get a big pair and just run into the nuts does not feel great for her. She wants to run twice. I'm down for that. We're going to see 5 cards 2 times. 2 boards it is, dealer. First board runs out with some Broadway potential, but unfortunately for Caitlin, it does not come home on the river. Top set is good on the first board for the pocket aces, and on the second board, there is not too many possibilities. The queens cannot find any help. We are going to scoop it in here. Pocket aces versus the pocket queens hold up on 2 boards in a $5,755 pot. And I don't love winning the maximum versus Caitlin. As mentioned, one of my favorite content creators, if not my favorite content creator. I told her in the moment that I would tell everyone to subscribe to her channel. So please do me a favor, not only for my own guilty feelings, but for Caitlin, because she deserves as many subs as she can get. Check out her channel. I will link it above. Check out her Instagram. Check out her Twitter. She's hilarious. She's nominated for a bunch of Global Poker Awards this year, which is, of course, very well deserved because she is hilarious. So check out her stuff. Do it as a favor to me, and do it as a favor to yourself because you'll love all of her work, I promise. All right, I'm on my second or third White Claw at the moment. We've got ourselves the 5-4 suited. On tilt has been replaced by the dentist on my right. The dentist coming in for the raise. Straight out of Wyoming, coming in for the raise up to $60. We've got the 5-4 suited. Let's put in the 3-bet. $200 it is. When the dentist arrived, he immediately bought a bottle of Cristal for the room. So we've got the full spectrum of offerings, White Claws and Cristal. Take your pick. Action over to JC/T1000, who is enjoying a glass of that Cristal. He's got himself a hand that is not ready to call for $200. It is ready to put in a 4-bet up to $900. The dentist gets out of the way. It's back over to us with the 5-4 suited. Got myself $12,000 in my stack. A lot of that at one point belonged to JC. I'm happy to give him some action. I'd probably call this anyway with the 5-4 suited. So let's go to a flop heads up that comes down. Queen, 5, 3, 2 clubs, 1 spade. Gives us a pair. Not terrible, not amazing, but not terrible. JC decides to continue here. That's a small bet, $400. Pretty expected in a 4-bet pot. We got ourselves an easy call. Turn is another queen, second spade, 2 flush draws on board now. Makes queen holdings slightly less likely. Less combos of those available now. More draws available with that second flush draw. JC can have any of it here. Not necessarily want to slow down, and in this spot, he goes ahead and fires out for $1,200. Things getting slightly serious now. Would he continue for this sizing on this board with a hand like pocket 10s, pocket jacks? Maybe. Definitely possible. Plenty to get value from. Could he have either of the flush draws? Definitely possible. A hand like Jack 10 of spades, King Jack of spades, Ace 10 of clubs, Ace 4 of clubs. Lots of possibilities there in JC's range. So we have ourselves second pair on the board. I don't know if we just want to throw it away here, even though it's very uncomfortable. $1,200. We've got ourselves that extra little bit of oomph with a White Claw lime flavor in our hand. So I'm going to go ahead and make the call here and see what happens on the river. River is a total brick on this board, essentially offsuit 8. None of the draws come in. Both flush draws brick out. A hand like Ace 4 suited bricks out. Ace deuce suited, something like that. Those all brick out. JC takes a swig of the Cristal. This is Cristal versus White Claw in this battle, the classic battle. And after thinking things over, JC decides to not give up. Assembles yet another bet. More yellow chips this time. Fires out for $3,700. And we are left with a very tough spot here. As mentioned, nothing changes here on the river, so if we were good on the turn, we're almost certainly good here on the river. And JC is saying that he essentially has a queen or better on this board. Better is extremely unlikely, but at least a queen, or he's got himself a bluff. Big sizing on the river here means strong hand or not much. I don't think he'd be firing away here after that queen pairs with a hand like pocket aces or pocket kings, but maybe it's possible. Not exactly sure though, and I think maybe some percentage of the time a lot of those pocket pairs will slow down. So he's got himself a queen here, most likely, or he's got himself a busted draw, most likely. Very tough spot here with a pair of fives after everything bricks out. To be honest, I'm really not sure. It's a very close spot. You could probably flip a coin. A lot of the time, I sort of forget to do the whole randomized thing, even though it's very fun to do. And it makes your decision a lot easier. Just flip a coin. You could very easily go 50-50 either way here in this spot. The table's chatting away. I don't mind it at all. I'm pretty locked in these spots. I can definitely focus on the task at hand despite the conversation going on. One other hand to consider in the moment that I did think of is 8-3. As mentioned, we're playing the Octo Crab with the bounty on. That hand, even though it's probably not going to win a showdown a lot of the time, it could take this line as a bluff because it blocks a lot of strong hands, blocks pocket threes and pocket eights on this board, could very easily turn that hand into a bluff. And we can't even beat that hand at this point. I don't weight that too strongly, but maybe it moves the needle slightly more into the fold category for my hand. Not being able to beat that hand. Could beat it on the flop and on the turn, can't beat it on the river. Turns out, after I decide to let it go, that JC does not have the Octo Crab. He's got himself the Ace Queen, which is a monster on this hand. Flops good, turns great, allows him to just go ahead and blast away on the river because he does in fact have the virtual nuts. He's going to win a decent sized pot here with the Ace Queen, and we let the 5-4 go. Things went mostly well in this session. We had some bangers of a hand. We had some hands where we were getting after it with some very exotic holdings. Worked out. We were able to find some bluffs in some fun spots, and of course we ran into some run good along the way. The cumulative winnings, we win a little bit less than this, graphics slightly off. Not mad about it though. Booking a win in these crazy volatile games in Texas is always a nice result and a really fun stat for me anyway. Here is a last look at the VPIPs with yours truly achieving 50%, playing 50% of the hands. We book a win. Happy to splash around a little bit more. And when you can do that and book a win, feels great all around.